surprised my wife. During her business trip, only to catch her cheating with a coworker. The alarm buzzed at 6 a.m. like it does every morning, kicking off our day. Jessica, my wife, and I groggily got out of bed, neither of us really wanting to face the day yet. As the morning sunlight streamed in, I let out a big groan, feeling more exhausted than usual. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, feet hitting the cold floor. "Why do you sound like an old man?" Jessica teased me as she made her way to the bathroom. "After last night, I feel like one," I shot back, laughing and thinking about how much fun we had. Jessica always knows how to keep things exciting. Today marked the start of Jessica's business trip, meaning I'd be flying solo for a week. Not exactly something to look forward to. As I heard the water running in the shower, I toyed with the idea of joining her, but decided I needed a bit more time to wake up slowly. Jessica came back into the bedroom, bursting with energy that made my sluggishness even more obvious. "Come on, lazy bones. Time to get moving. We have bills to pay," she said, giving me a playful nudge. Okay, I'm up," I replied, dragging myself to the bathroom for a much-needed wake-up splash. After getting dressed, we had breakfast together, sharing some toast and coffee before going our separate ways. Jessica headed to the airport while I got ready for another day at our job. We both work at a manufacturing company in St. Louis. Jessica's a lawyer specializing in negotiations, and I'm an engineer. Her current trip took her to Denver to work out a new deal with an aerospace company. These trips happen a few times a year and usually last about a week. Jessica, 35, graduated from State University's law school 12 years ago. She's pretty noticeable, about 5'4", tall, around 125 lbs, with a figure you can't miss. From day one, she completely charmed me. "My name's John Baker, and I'm 37, standing at 6'1". I keep in shape with regular exercise. We both love golf and often play with friends. Our romance started at a company picnic, and it was love at first sight for me. We got married just 6 months later, and now, 7 years into our marriage, we've just bought our dream house. We're planning to start a family soon, and Jessica aims to become a stay-at-home mom. Her parents live nearby and are pretty supportive. After breakfast, I helped Jessica pack her car, saying goodbye with a kiss. I noticed the tears in her eyes as she got into the driver's seat. "I hope we won't have to say goodbye like this much longer," I said, feeling hopeful about our future. "I can't wait for these trips to be over," she said, expressing her dislike for parting. "I dread these farewells as much as you," I comforted her. "How about we make Friday night easy with some delivery food so you can relax?" "That sounds perfect. See you then," she said before driving off. I watched her car disappear down the street before heading back inside to get ready for work. After grabbing a coffee on my way to the office, I went straight to my desk. That's when my phone rang. "This is Baker," I answered. "Hey, John, can you come to my office?" Hubert, my boss, requested from the other line. "Of course I'm on my way," I replied, taking my coffee with me. Upon arrival, Hubert invited me to sit down. "John, there's an opportunity you might find interesting. Remembering you said Jessica would be away, it crossed my mind. Our technician in California, Gerald Carter, is sick and can't address an issue with a client in San Jose. Since you're well-versed with the equipment in question, would you consider resolving the matter in San Jose? Currently, I don't have much going on here, and with Jessica not around, I'm available. So, how soon do the need me?" "Immediately," he replied. "Lucy will handle your travel arrangements. Please inform the client about your visit and discuss the problem in detail." "Okay, I'm on it now," I said, suddenly feeling excited about the trip. "I'll go home to pack and take a flight out this afternoon. That way I can be at the client's place first thing tomorrow." "All right, have a good trip," Hubert said as we wrapped up our conversation. I stopped by Lucy's desk to inform her about my travel needs, then called the client from my desk to get more details on their issue. After that, I headed home to pack. On the drive back, I couldn't help but smile, thinking about a quick idea. If I finished early, I could swing by Denver and surprise Jessica. Waiting at the airport for my flight, I tried to call Jessica, but she didn't pick up. I left her a message saying I'd be at my parents' place for a few days and that she could reach me in the evenings on my cell. By Tuesday afternoon, I had fixed the issue for our customer, getting their equipment working smoothly. I quickly booked a flight to Denver, planning to arrive by 9 p.m. Mountain Time. I checked out of my hotel in San Jose and headed to the San Francisco airport, grabbing dinner before my flight. While eating, Jessica called and we chatted for a bit. She asked about my parents, and I played along as if I were actually with them. She mentioned that the negotiations were moving forward, but that she was really tired and planned to relax in her hotel room that evening. After saying we loved each other, we hung up. After dinner, I boarded my flight and landed in Denver around 9:45 p.m. At her fancy hotel, the staff checked my ID and then gave me a key card to her suite. I entered quietly, noticing a lamp on over the desk with her laptop closed, but no sign of Jessica. I put down my suitcase and checked the bedroom and bathroom. Both were empty. Feeling a bit puzzled, I wondered if she hadn't come back to her room yet. Should I wait in the suite or go look for her in the hotel lounge? Then, I noticed the door to the next room was slightly ajar. I approached it and pushed it open quietly. The living room of the suite next door was also empty. Curious, I walked in, and then I heard a noise from the bedroom that stopped me in my tracks. My heart pounded, and I broke into a cold sweat as I moved closer. When I opened the bedroom door and peeked into the dimly lit room, my heart almost jumped out of my chest. There was Jessica, stark naked, and some random guy I didn't recognize was sprawled out on the bed, his face turned away from me. The urge to storm in there and scream at both of them was almost too strong to resist, but somehow I managed to keep my emotions in check. I quietly backed away and headed straight to Jessica's suite. From my bag, I grabbed the digital camera I'd brought along to capture memories from our trip. I fiddled with the settings to make sure it could handle the low light and turned off the flash. I didn't want to alert them. With a deep breath, I went back to the bedroom door, staying as silent as a mouse, while I snapped several photos of the scene. They were so wrapped up in each other that they didn't notice me at all. I felt a sick satisfaction knowing I had this betrayal caught on camera. Before leaving her suite, I noticed Jessica's briefcase was open on the table. Curiosity got the best of me, and I found a business card from David Price, our company's lead negotiator. Interesting. I pocketed the card, thinking it might come in handy later. Returning to her room, I hooked up my camera to her laptop using the interface cable I always carried around. Since our laptops used the same software, it was a breeze to transfer the pictures. I made sure to set the most damning photo as her desktop background. Packing up my camera and fighting back the tears, I quietly left her room and made my way to the elevator. The weight of her. The betrayal hit me like a ton of bricks. At the front desk, I returned the room key and immediately called the airline to find the earliest flight back to St. Louis. Thankfully, there was a 6:30 a.m. flight that would get me home by 9:30 a.m. This timing was perfect. Jessica usually started her day by opening her laptop at the negotiation table, and she'd be greeted by the evidence of her infidelity right away. This, I figured, would be the moment she realized our marriage was truly over. I headed to a nearby motel to kill some time before my flight. Sleep was out of the question. My mind kept replaying the haunting images from her hotel room, and I let myself cry until there were no tears left. By 5 a.m., I was emotionally drained, but determined to end this marriage as quickly as possible. Back in St. Louis, my phone started buzzing as soon as I got into my car. Seeing Jessica's name on the caller ID, I ignored it and turned off my phone. When I got home, the house phone started ringing almost immediately. It was Jessica again. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was urgent. "John, you need to call me back as soon as you can. It's really important." Ignoring her pleas, I changed my clothes and went out to rent a U-Haul truck. When I returned, I packed up my belongings as quickly as I could, aiming to be out of the house before Jessica got back around 4 p.m. In just a few hours, I moved everything to a storage unit I had already reserved. Before I started packing, I had also made an appointment with our lawyer to discuss divorce proceedings. At the lawyer's office, I opted for irreconcilable differences as the reason for our divorce, but kept the infidelity photos as backup in case things got ugly. I updated my will so that my brother would inherit everything, and then headed to the bank to move half of the money from our shared accounts into new separate accounts. I also contacted my investment advisor to do the same with our investments. Feeling emotionally exhausted, I drove to my parents' house with my suitcase. My mom was visibly surprised when I walked in. "John, what's going on? Jessica's been calling here nonstop looking for you. Did you say you'd be here?" I sat down with my retired dad and explained everything. They were shocked to hear about Jessica's cheating, and I asked if I could stay with them for a while until I found a new place. They agreed without hesitation. Just as we were about to have dinner around 6 p.m., the doorbell rang. My dad answered it and came back with an upset-looking Jessica. "John, why haven't you been answering my calls? I need to talk to you. All your stuff is gone from our house," she said, her voice quivering. "I thought the note I left on your computer would tell you everything you needed to know," I replied calmly. "Oh, no. I was scared you were the one who left that note. Can we please talk somewhere privately, honey?" Jessica pleaded. "Jessica, I'm not your honey anymore, and there's nothing left for us to talk about. I've started the divorce process, and if we need to discuss anything, our lawyers can handle it. Seeing what you did in Denver has completely destroyed any feelings I had for you. Please leave so I can enjoy my dinner," I said firmly. "Please, John, don't end things without a proper conversation," she begged. "What excuse could you possibly have for cheating? It wasn't self-defense, that's for sure. Besides, I have proof," I shot back, holding my ground. "Maybe you should give David, your boyfriend, a heads up. I'm curious what his wife will think of all this," I added. "Oh my God, can't we just talk about this, John? Please." Jessica's voice was full of fear and desperation. "Just leave, Jessica. You're making my dinner go cold," I insisted. "But here's a thought. Why don't you write me a detailed letter explaining why you thought it was okay to break our marriage vows? I'm sure a lawyer as clever as you can me up with a convincing argument that it was all my fault, claiming you still have a lot of love and respect for me." Tears streaming down her face, Jessica turned to leave but paused and looked back at me. "Please, John, reconsider ending our marriage without us having a real discussion." "Goodbye, Jessica," I stated firmly. After she left, my parents sat in silence, stunned by the whole ordeal. "John, that was quite harsh," my mom pointed out. "Mom, would you like to see the pictures I have of her with another man? That's the real harsh reality," I snapped back. "She's shown me complete disrespect, and I can't accept that. I can't ever trust her again. Do you really want me to have children with someone like that?" "I get it, son," my dad finally said after a moment of silence. "But maybe after things settle down, you might start to see things a bit differently." "I don't think so, Dad. Can we just change the subject and finish dinner?" I asked, eager to move on from the painful topic. "Sure, son," my dad responded, though I could tell he was a bit reluctant to let it go. Jessica's story. Leaving home. That Monday morning, I was hit with a whirlwind of emotions, a mix of sadness for leaving John and excitement for our future plans to start a family. We had been so patient, making sure we were ready both financially and in our careers for this next big step. Now it felt like everything was finally falling into place. The flight to Denver was smooth, and I found myself sitting next to David Price, our chief negotiator. We chatted briefly about work and then shifted to more personal conversations about our families. David knew about my plan to leave my job once I got pregnant, and he mentioned just how much he'd miss working with me when I became a stay-at-home mom. David, 48 and married for 20 years with teenagers, had been my partner in negotiations well before I got married. We knew each other inside and out and worked seamlessly together. The rest of our team was seated behind us, caught up in their own discussions. When we got to the hotel in Denver, we found out our rooms were right next to each other, a setup meant for discussing work late into the night. But about a decade ago, things changed between us. We started seeing our time together as a way to unwind from the stresses of work. We told ourselves it wasn't really cheating. It was just something that helped us work better. Occasionally, we even joked about it. After I'd been married to John for a few years, guilt started to creep in about my secret meetings with David, so we called it off. But then, during a really tough negotiation, David suggested we start up again to ease the stress. I hesitantly agreed and found myself pulled back into the affair. The thrill and the danger of it somehow made things more exciting at home with John, which made me feel less guilty. On this trip, I didn't meet up with David the first night because I was too exhausted. But after a grueling day of negotiations the next day, I decided to see him. I don't know how or when John found out or how he got that picture, but I was completely shocked to see it on my laptop the next morning. David, sitting next to me, quickly closed my laptop and called for a break in the negotiations. We stepped into the hallway where he was clearly upset. "Why is there a picture like that on your laptop?" he asked. "I don't know, David. That wasn't there the last time I used it," I answered, still in shock. "Let's take another look," he said. We opened the laptop again and examined the image together. "Oh no, that's you," he said. "Me? How could that be?" I was confused. "I'm not sure, but that's definitely you. And the person under you looks like it could be me, even though you can't see my face," David replied. "Did you leave your laptop somewhere someone could have taken that picture?" "No, it was with me the whole trip. And only in my room or yours. I can't imagine how someone got in to take a photo," I replied. "The door was shut, so I thought it was locked. You've got to go back to the hotel and see if they let anyone into your room last night. You'll stay here and manage things. Try getting in touch with John to see where he was last night. It's impossible it was him. I talked to him while he was at his parents' place." "Did you call his parents' landline?" "No, he told me to use his cell phone. That's worrisome. He could have been anywhere when you called. Hit me up on my cell phone if you find out anything and try to sort this mess out. Get a taxi back to the hotel." "Got it. See you soon." I was soaked in sweat. If John put that photo on my laptop, it pretty much means we're done. I had to get back to the hotel to figure things out. The person at the desk got me a cab, and I was back at the hotel in no time. I went straight to the reception to ask if anyone got into my room. The person working there checked the system and told me a Mr. John Baker was given a key at 9:45 p.m. last night and returned it 30 minutes later. That's when it hit me hard that my marriage was probably over. The man I loved more than anything was gone, but I was determined to try and win him back. I went up to my room and immediately tried calling John's cell phone and his office. His phone was off, so I left a voicemail telling him it was really important for him to call me back. His secretary said he was on a business trip in California and would be back tomorrow. So, he went to California and might have stopped by to surprise me on his way back. Looks like we both ended up being surprised. I called his parents, and they said they hadn't seen him in a few days. I asked them to tell him to call me as soon as they hear from him. I tried calling our house too, but no one answered. I left a message there as well, hoping he'd call back soon. Sitting alone in the room, I couldn't stop crying. With no other way to reach him, I quickly booked the next flight back, to St. Louis. After packing up, I called David to tell him what was going on. He was silent for a moment before saying, "Jessica, it looks like we might both be facing divorces or maybe something even worse." "Worse than a divorce?" "What could that be?" I asked, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "Our company has strict rules against managers dating. If word gets out, we could both lose our jobs. It wouldn't be good for either of our careers." "Oh no, I didn't think about that." Losing John already feels like the world is ending. Losing my job on top of that would be too much. But right now, I need to go back to St. Louis and try to talk to John. Maybe there's a chance to fix things. I've got a flight leaving at noon, and I'll be back in St. Louis by 4:30. I have to find him and talk. He'll let you know how it goes. I have to stay here until we finish our business talks. He'll be waiting to hear from you, David said before hanging up. So, I said my goodbyes, grabbed my stuff, and hustled down to the lobby to check out. I hopped into the hotel's limo and headed straight to the airport. During my flight back to St. Louis, all I could think about was trying to get John to talk to me. I wanted to make it clear that what happened was purely physical, with zero emotional attachment. I hoped he'd see my cheating as a one-off mistake, nothing more. When I finally got home, everything seemed normal at first. But then, I walked into our bedroom and noticed all his clothes and things were gone. That's when it hit me he knew, and he had left. I was desperate to find him. After calling him 1,000,000 times and getting no response, I decided to go over to his parents' house to see if I could get any info. Seeing him there was brutal. He was so cold and distant it made me feel sick. He flat out told me he was divorcing me and didn't care about anything I had to say. Nothing was going to change his mind. When he asked me to write a letter explaining my side, it just felt like he was twisting the knife. I had to leave and go cry in my car. The future we had planned together was crumbling. All our dreams of having a family, growing old together, and enjoying grandkids were slipping away. On top of feeling utterly heartbroken, I also selfishly worried that I might be too old to have kids by the time I found someone new. Eventually, I managed to pull myself together enough to start the car and drive back to what now felt like an empty house, overwhelmed by a deep sense of loss and uncertainty about the future. On the other side, John had a restless night, tormented by images of Jessica and David together. He got up early and went downstairs at his parents' house to make some coffee. Feeling down, he grabbed his laptop and camera to go through the photos. He was obsessed with finding any trace of David in those pictures. As he flipped through them, he couldn't make out David's face clearly, but he kept looking until he finally noticed something on David's arm as he reached out to Jessica. Zooming in, John saw a heart tattoo with J8 written inside it, a dead giveaway since Janie 8 was David's wife's name. Armed with this proof, John went upstairs, took a shower, and got ready for work. By the time he came back down, his mom was busy making breakfast. At work, he immediately made a few CDs with the damning photo and printed out several copies, putting everything in a folder. Determined, he went straight to the HR department to talk to the manager, Chad. They knew each other from working at the same small company and had even played golf together once. Laying out the photos in front of Chad, John waited for his reaction. Chad looked curious and a bit amused. "What's this, John?" 30 pictures? Chad asked. John sighed. "Sorry, Chad, but that's my wife and David Price. The photos were taken on Tuesday night in David's hotel room in Denver. They were on a business trip for our company." Chad's demeanor changed. "Oh no, John T. That's tough to hear. What's your plan?" "We could fire them both for breaking the no-dating rule in their job contracts, but we've never actually done that before. Are you sure you want to go through with it? It'll make the affair public. Are you thinking of divorcing Jessica?" "I've already told my lawyer to start working on the divorce papers," John replied. "But if the company doesn't do anything, I'll have to sue." "All right, John, he'll talk to our legal team and get things started," Chad agreed. John then went to tell his boss, Hubert, about what was going on. Hubert was shocked and worried. John asked for the rest of the week off, and Hubert agreed without hesitation. Before John left, Hubert praised him for his work on the California trip and mentioned the possibility of John taking over the California area since the current engineer was retiring for health reasons. John said he'd think about it and let Hubert know his decision next week. As John was leaving Hubert's office, his secretary Lucy stopped him. "John, your wife came by looking for you. She said she'd come back later." "Lucy, I don't want to see my wife at all." Please tell her that if she comes back, John replied. Oh, John, I'm so sorry. I didn't know there was a problem, Lucy said, looking concerned. There's a big problem, Lucy. We're getting a divorce. She and David Price have been cheating, John explained. He figured everyone at work would know by lunchtime since Lucy loved to chat. Back at his desk, John called David's wife, Janet. They had seen each other at work events, but this was going to be a tough conversation. Janet, it's John Baker. How are you? I'm okay, John. David said you might call but didn't say why, Janet replied. Janet, we need to talk. Is now a good time? John asked. Sure, John. I have to go to the hairdresser at 1, but I'm free now. You know where I live, right? Yes, I do. I'll be there in 15 minutes, John said, feeling nervous about what he had to do. He couldn't let David get off easy and leave Jessica to deal with everything. When he arrived at the Price's house, Janet welcomed him in. Hi, John, come in. Do you want some coffee? I just made it, she offered. Sure thing, Janet. Just plain black, please, John said. After a short while, Janet returned with the coffee and sat down across from him. So, what's up? She asked. John took a deep breath. I thought about breaking it to you gently, but decided to just be direct. I need to tell you something tough, Janet. I saw your husband and my wife together in Denver. I'm divorcing Jessica and getting them fired from their jobs. I hate being the one to break this news, but it's going public soon, and I wanted to give you a heads up. I have photos if you want proof. Janet listened intently, but didn't show much emotion. John, I've had suspicions about David's behavior on his business trips for a while now, though I hope they weren't true, she admitted. David has always been a loving husband and dad, and I didn't want to think about the possibility, but I realized that sooner or later, their affair was bound to come to light. I guess this is it. I'm really sorry you're dealing with all this in your marriage, and honestly, I feel bad on my end, too. David's at an age where finding another job with the same pay isn't going to be a walk in the park. Now I've got to figure out my next steps. Would you like a copy of the pictures I have? I asked. Yes, please leave them. I'll muster up the courage to look at them, Janet replied quietly. I'm truly sorry, Janet. I couldn't just ignore this. Jessica and I were close to starting a family, but I can't see a future with someone I can't trust or respect. The mother of my kids needs to have both of those things, I explained, my voice heavy with sadness. I get it, John. Thanks for being straight with me. I'd rather hear it from you first. And I want to say again how sorry I am about what's happening with Jessica. I'm sure she feels awful too, and David will when he finds out I know about their affair. I just wish it was a one-time thing. It'd be easier to forgive. But I think it's been going on for years, and that's hard to take. Now that it's out in the open, I've got my pride, and I need to keep my head up, Janet said, her voice sounding both sad and determined. If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know, I said genuinely as I got ready to leave and head back to my parents' place. Epilogue. It's been 6 months since I started the divorce process. This morning, I got the final papers officially ending my marriage to Jessica. I haven't talked to her or seen her since the day she came to my parents' place. My lawyer handled everything in the divorce deal. I gave up the house, which had a big mortgage, along with all the furniture and stuff I bought on credit, just to cut ties with her completely. I also got my name taken off the mortgage, so she was on the hook for all the payments. Without my steady income, she had to sell the house and took a big financial hit. At first, she tried to fight the divorce, but I gave her an ultimatum: sign the papers in 48 hours, or I'd change the reason for the divorce to cheating and put the pictures of her and David online. Under the pressure, she agreed within the time limit, and that's why I am a free man now. It seems like she realized she didn't want me that much after all. Even though Jessica lost her job because of what happened, she's a smart lawyer and managed to land a new job within a month. It might not pay as much or have the same perks as her old one, but I've heard she's getting by and has even started dating again. Good luck to her new boyfriend, whoever he is. I can't help but wonder if she's told him about our divorce and why it happened. Maybe I should tell him myself. Divorced David is struggling financially. Then, though he found a new job after getting fired, his new salary makes it hard for him to keep up with alimony and child support. As for me, I've settled in Santa Maria, California, a peaceful coastal town halfway between the Bay Area and Los Angeles. This place lets me easily get to both the northern and southern parts of the state. I moved here about 4 months ago, and now live in an apartment building full of singles and young couples, many of whom are saving money to buy a house. The cost of housing here is high, making it expensive to get into the market. I've also found companionship with a woman who lives in the same building. Like me, she's been through a divorce, but we've found comfort and compatibility with each other. We're taking things slow, seeing if there's a future for us together. Since I travel a lot for work, trust is really important in any relationship, especially if we think about having kids someday. The ticking of biological clocks reminds me that time doesn't wait for anyone, so I'm thinking about making a move sooner rather than later.